Venus Project is.
Oh, I can't hear.
Let me turn it up.
Jack is a little hard of hearing, so whoever wants to speak up, just walk up and ask the question. But I'm going to start off with the first question, and that is when the financial system collapses and people are looking for a solution, and the Venus Project is proposed, how would the Venus Project, I don't like to say the word compete, that's not the right word. How do you get past the anarchy?
Past the anarchy. How do you get past the Jacques is hard to put it, so I'm going to repeat him. How do you get past the anarchy with initiating this project after the collapse?
Well, I've spoken to hundreds of people. Where did he go?
There's an echo. Can you hear this?
I've spoken to hundreds of people throughout, and I have an audience of about 3 people, and so most of them have no objection. We don't know that. No one
Hold on, we're getting a little.
Anarchy has a very different meaning today, but it's very different than its origins. A lot of people think anarchy is just a free-for-all, everybody for themselves, no direction, against government, and they have no plan. The Venus Project has a specific plan and direction, even down to blueprints. So for those, it's very important at this point to introduce people to this direction, to show that there is an alternative. Those people that understand what it's about at the time would help initiate it. And you know, I hope you understand from the film, the direction is no war, no poverty, no hunger, and addressing the real problems, the core of the problems, finding the core and the root cause of the problems, and essentially engineer it out of the social design. So you don't have the aberrant behavior you have today. You take care of the needs of people. You re-educate in a very different way. So, you know, if you mean just mindless, no direction, everybody out for themselves, that's more like it is today. If that's what you're referring to as anarchy, I don't know what your definition of it is.
I prefer to answer the question.
Break down, and everybody's a million rubles to think about yourself. So everybody is doing it.
That's when you present the resource. As long as you have the resource, it's not good. I actually would like to know, how would you educate people differently than people are being educated now? How would our environment change the way we act? Because in general, everybody in the same room is the same person. It's just that our background in the events that have happened in our lives have shaped our personality. So how would we be educated
how would they be educated in a resource-based economy? How would it differ?
Well, they will be exposed to the factors that shape human values. For example, there's no discussion at all on the factors that shape criminal behavior. There's no discussion on how aberrant behavior is generated. And psychologists try to adjust people to this system. They would have to be stupid to do that because it's never worked. And psychiatrists is the same problem. They don't know how to study human behavior. They're looking at the brain for answers. And you don't find the answers in the brain. The brain is a result of the environment. In other words, if you were raised by the headhunters of the Amazon as a baby, if you never saw anything else, you'd be a headhunter. And if I said to you, doesn't it bother you to have 6 shrunken heads? You might say, yes, my brother has 20. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the guy. I think that he was brought up in a culture where that is normal to that culture. I believe that in the Arab world, if you were brought up in the Arab world, you might have 10 or 15 wives, if you can afford it. But I don't think there's anything wrong. It's different.
How would education be different, was the main question.
Well, children will be raised on how they relate to nature and how nature serves their interest. And if you don't take care of nature, if you dump toxic materials into the rivers, the oceans, you're going to kill the fish and you're going to hurt civilization. So we say we must support nature. Nature is what keeps us alive. We must help children understand how they relate to oxygen given out by trees and carbon dioxide absorbed by trees. In other words, we have to educate people into the real world, not the Mickey Mouse Club. Do you understand?
You really give kids at an early age the basics of science, and you teach them how they relate to the world and how they relate to one another.
Yes. Without that, there's no hope. If man goes the way he's going today, he's going to ruin the oceans, the rivers, the atmosphere. They have no idea of what to do. Politicians are generally very poorly informed people. But I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to ask politicians, how can you stop war? They have no idea. How can you bridge the difference between nations that have a different kind of culture? They have no idea. And they don't know how to solve problems. No politician has ever increased the agricultural yield or devised anything like refrigerators, the things that make your life easier.
Children would be educated in different fields in regards to what the problems are that are relevant to everyone. The professions of law, of banking, of advertising, of insurance people would really be surpassed because they would have no need in that type of society within a resource-based economy. Everybody would be working on problem solving and things that help increase the arable land, the yield of the food without any poisons, without any pesticides. They would be taught professions of anything related in the sciences.
In other words, if you spray poisons on plants, that's absorbed by the plants, that hurts people. We can use sound to keep certain insects away from plants. But certain insects are good for plants. So we study the acoustical level of insect behavior and manage that as a control device.
Good evening, sir. My name is Mark. I'm here tonight watching the film. We have a very nice crowd here tonight. Among the topics of discussion among the folks sitting near me has been how the systems that you just proposed could be implemented, if not gradually or initially. How do you see a transition to bringing what you talked about to reality?
I see the transition as very painful because it's not easy to take people that have already been conditioned to a certain way of life and they think that that's real. That's the only way. You have to re-educate them. When Tesla discovered the wireless, he had to tell people how it works, what it's about. Otherwise, they couldn't possibly use it. When Darwin came up with a theory of evolution, he had to explain it to people. They can't just read his book and understand it. You have to fill in the gaps. You have to answer a lot of questions that people ask. The big problem today is that people believe that they have freedom of choice. Actually, they really don't. Their choices are within their culture. Their advertising, their books, their radio programs, their movies, all of those things influence their choice and behavior. There's no such thing as individuality, unless you've lived in France 3 years, Germany 2 years, Switzerland, various countries, and you pick up different values. They don't even know what creativity is. They think that some people are gifted and they have that creative ability. Creativity is the putting together of known elements in unique ways. I hope you understand that language.
In terms of the transition, you know, it's happening all over the world. This monetary system is not working. It's failing, but they don't have an alternative. They don't know what to put in, like in Egypt. They overthrow the government, and in other places too, and they don't know what to put in its place. So it is a big educational process. People come to us and say, when are you going to initiate it? It's not up to us, me and Jacques. We work at it. We've been working at it. Jacques' been working at it all his life. I've been working at it for 36 years. But it takes everybody else who identifies this to do something about it and talk to others about it and learn more about it. This system is falling apart in just that if it's not the environment, if it's not polluting everything in the air and the water, you know, everything becomes corrupted within the monetary system. The science becomes corrupted. The environment becomes polluted. So we are automating more and more in order to compete with one another, to bring the price down so they can sell it. The more that industry automates and eliminates people's jobs, then they do not have the purchasing power to buy the goods turned out. This is a scenario for the end of the monetary system as well. And the march of events are bringing us toward that.
I would agree. What I'm thinking is that if you were to establish a community in which many of the forms and methods that you propose could be implemented, like any of the planned unit developments and so forth that we see throughout the world, that could give people an example of what is possible and how it could be achieved. Have you given any thought to establishing an intentional community?
Yes, we're not really interested in like a little commune. We are really interested in a working example of what we're talking about with high tech and showing the efficiency of the type of city that Jacques talks about. For that, within this system, we do need funding. And we have been working at it. We have approached different governments, or different governments have approached us, but it has not come about yet. We think it will. We think as more people know about it, there is more possibility for that. We're not interested, as I said, in a hand-tooled commune type of thing, because we're interested in a first research center that helps disseminate this information all over the world, and that would be the purpose of it. We're not interested in just a community that lives well, because as the system starts to fall, then people are going to go over your gate if you have a gate, and they're going to ask just for food for their kids. If you give food to the kids, you're going to have hundreds more. So you can't live to yourself. We really feel it's a huge push that we need to get this social direction and out to people.
Let me say this. What we want to do is declare all the world's resources as the common heritage of all the world's people. If few people control most of the resources, the water, the drinking water, arable land, you're going to have territorial disputes. That's a result of the way you live, not like if people are bad or greedy. People are neither good nor bad. They're made a certain way by their culture. If
Are
you
you
don't,
familiar, are you familiar with the work of the architect and visionary William McDonough?
Yes.
He's been contracted by the government of China, People's Republic of China, to plan and design entire cities that are environmentally friendly, that employ a lot of the appropriate technologies that have come about through the ages and of recent years. Those are of a scale of what you're talking about that might gain the size that you feel you need to make things work according to your design.
Yes.
Have you been talking to maybe the People's Republic of China?
Yes, we've been there. Just different circumstances, it didn't work at the time. I've never heard him talk about a different social design. It's not just a green city or a green rooftop or open source. You really have to have an understanding of how the society works and talk about the implementation of sharing the Earth's resources and within a resource-based economy. And I know of no one else, no other architects, no other futurists. They play it safe. They don't touch the monetary system. They don't deal with the root causes of the problems.
as long as you use money, you can pay off politicians, you can sell drugs, but if you eliminate money and go to a resource-based economy using resources, no one can sell drugs, no one can pay off a judge, no one can pay off a lawyer. Everybody is subservient to the system that they're raised in. You know, some of the geneticists were looking for the Republican gene. There is no Republican gene. They're raised as Republicans. There's no Democratic gene or Communist gene or selfish gene. All the genes control is the color of your eyes, the shape of your nose, the physical attributes that you have. They do not give you a value system. Race prejudice is learned.
Over to Dustin here.
You know, even if we build the first city and people are not oriented to a different value system, you will have all the same problems if the city is efficiently run or not.
It isn't the design of cities, it's the reshaping of human values to fit in with the nature of the physical world. Politicians make laws. You can't make laws, you have to know what the laws are that shape human behavior. What is creativity? What is a gifted person? When a person says you're gifted, it means they have no idea of what shapes your behavior, that somehow you have it within you. Some people believe that people are basically good. All you have to do is bring that out. I used to train police dogs to lead the blind when I was much younger. And a sweet old lady walked over to one of my dogs and said, "What a nice dog, it helps the blind." I said, "No, I could have raised that dog to tear people to pieces or help the blind. There's no good or bad dogs, nor are there good or bad people. If you're raised in a Nazi culture, you're a Nazi as a baby. Unless you've been around and you've seen many other ideas, then you have contradictory ideas. The more a child is exposed to insects and fish and different types of organisms, the broader their range of mental capacity. If they're only brought up in Weehawken County, New Jersey, and never leave that county and never look at books of different structures, they have no imagination. Imagination is compiling information along lines that you're not familiar with. The more you know about cars, if you just service a Volkswagen, you understand Volkswagen. But if you service a Mercedes, many different types of cars, you have a broader frame of reference. What we do is increase the frame of reference of people so they no longer feel like they use words like love today. They say there's not enough love in the world. What is love? There's nobody that loves everything they've ever done in life. We've done a lot of stupid things. So sometimes you like yourself a lot, sometimes a little less, sometimes not at all. So when you fall in love with another person, you're not in love with him. You love certain things about them. There are other things about them that you don't like. The word love implies a total acceptance of another person. Many people have different areas of behavior, and we fall in love with certain areas of behavior. If you understand what I'm talking about, you have no problem.
I like the notion, if you moved in with a replica of yourself, how long would you be together?
Very nice.
The Venus Project is very different than any other system. It has to do with what is a human being and what shapes their behavior and their values. This is a question. And can we control the various elements so that people don't lie? If you watch politicians, the Democrats cannot communicate with the Republicans. Neither can Republicans speak with the Democrat. They talk against each other. There's not a scientific meeting. It's a very primitive concept, the way politics is run today. I'm ashamed of watching a political discussion, actually ashamed of the people engaged in it. For the age we live in, there are much better systems, but no one is permitted to talk about it. When I was invited on the Larry King show, he said to me, "What do you think of the automobiles made in America?" I said, "If you have an airbag in front of you, if you get hit on the side, your head goes through the glass. The whole inside has to be an airbag, not just in front of you." And then he said, "Well, what do you think of cigarettes?" "I think they're cancer sticks. They produce cancer or heart disease." He says, "Why does the government sell them?" "Because they collect taxes on it. They make money. The government doesn't give a hoot about people. They do give a hoot about profit and money." This is what motivates politicians: money and station in life. They want to be remembered as the President of the United States. They don't have any goals to make humans better, deeper in understanding, totally different in behavior. If you bring up girls a certain way, like when I was in the South Sea Islands, I was surprised to find that everyone walked around nude. The babies, the adults, all wore no clothing. I'm talking about the island of Tuamotu, about 65 years ago. And when I was there, they all walked around nude and there was no peeping toms. Can you understand that? The island didn't generate any fetishes. They said to a girl, "Me like you," and they stroked the whole girl. They didn't stop at the ears or any portion of the body. And no native ever looked at the girl and said, "Hey, get a load of that chick." This is all learned in this culture. This culture, if your boys and girls swam nude when they were very young, there'd be no peeping toms. There'd be no collection of nude girls. All that's generated by the type of system you live in. And it's very hard for me to dissect the whole system for you. I'm just saying all of us are contaminated by an artificial system. I'm sorry about that. So if you have some real questions, let's try them.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so it seems to me that one of your fundamental premises is that, and you've been talking a lot about how people are completely shaped by their culture and, all personalities due to nurture and the way you're brought up, but I wonder how you account for scientific research in things like twin studies that show that a lot of people's personalities and characteristics and actions are due to nature and genetics.
She was talking about how you propose that the environment shapes behavior. What about the studies of twins where it shows that it's nature and not nurture?
Well, learning what to do for research is a big problem. That people cannot always study human behavior without Seminole Indian, you'd be a Seminole Indian. If you ask an Eskimo, a real Eskimo that's never traveled out of northern Alaska. If you say you can have anything you want, he'll never ask for three-dimension television. It's outside of his frame of reference. But when an American Indian talks of heaven, it's a happy hunting ground. Good hunting, lots of animals, lots of good straight bow and arrows. But their thinking is always within the range of their culture. It cannot exceed the culture. Even guys like Leonardo da Vinci did not associate with normal people. They associated with people that talked of gears, levers, different things, which he found interesting. He said normal people always say, good morning, how are you, how's the family? Always say the same thing. They think they're individuals, but they're very uniform. And soldiers are nothing but killing machines. We would take all the soldiers, send them back to school as problem solvers. That's what is the trouble with the world. There are many problems, cancer, heart disease, problems common to all people. That's what we would work on in the future, not killing people, not designing airplanes with bombs or military people. Military people are some of the most stupid people I have ever met. They always think of a problem, machine guns or cannons or anti-aircraft weapons or bombers or nerve gas. This is sick thinking. All of that is sick thinking. And what the Venus Project proposes is not to hurt anybody or kill anybody or torture anybody, to bring all the nations together, because I believe that all people can learn to be engineers, scientists, and there's no American way of doing bridges or Greek way of doing bridges. There's only an engineering way. And so I would say engineers are under the influence of the monetary system. Unfortunately, they work for corporations, and corporations are not interested in the public welfare. They're interested in profit only. And if the profit margin goes down, they lay off people. If it goes up, they hire people. They're not interested in people. That's why they outsource to China. If they loved Americans, they would never outsource to another country. But they couldn't maintain the competitive edge either. Do you understand that? That's why the country...
Yeah, I'm totally with you on the let's not tell people. So,
I couldn't hear that.
I don't know if I completely agree that people are blank slates that culture writes on, but I do agree with some of your views. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, we can't quite, that's kind of muddled. We couldn't quite hear you.
I said that I'm with you on the let's not kill people thing, but I don't know if I totally agree with you that everyone is just a blank slate that culture writes on. But let's agree to disagree, and thank you for your time.
Okay. She doesn't quite believe that we're open slate that culture writes on.
We're actually, I apologize, Jacques and Roxanne. Actually, I want to start by saying thank you. It's 9 o'clock and the library is 8. Oh, well, guess what? We can keep going with questions. Sorry about that. Yeah, they were so proud.
It's time for another question.
Hello,
Hi.
my name's Norman Russell, and I want to know if there's billions of people fighting for the crumbs after the collapse. How are you going to stop these people and get them to work together? How's that possible?
After the collapse, how do you get people to work together? How is that possible?
It is not possible unless you show them how it can work. In other words, you can't walk into a primitive tribe and say, drop your bow and arrows, pick up this and do this. They wouldn't know what you're talking about. The same with Americans or Germans or Frenchmen.
Is there an exact plan for when this collapse happens? Is this to implement anything to try to get through to people?
Can you come closer to the mic?
Is there an exact plan for when this happens, for what to do, to start to get through to people, to get people to work together? That seems to be the only problem. You have a very good idea.
Yes,
you can work out the bugs.
We do have
How do you get
that
start?
the collapse to get people to work together.
Yes, we have. Let me tell you a little bit about it. First of all, the language that you use was designed hundreds of years ago. And you can't talk to people, you talk at them. Their environment really shapes their values. So they hear what you say, but it comes out in terms of the way they were raised. The Arab world doesn't understand how it is that we have only one wife in America. Man should naturally have 10 to 15 women. But they really believe that because that's the way they're brought up. The Bible, when you read the Bible, somebody says, this is what Jesus meant. Another person says, oh no, he meant that. The third person says, you're both wrong. So you have the Lutheran, the Catholic, the Seventh-day Adventist, only because it's subject to interpretation. All your language is subject to interpretation. But not when engineers talk to each other. When they talk to each other about the wings of an airplane, they talk about the wing loading, and they understand each other. Technicians do not walk away saying, I think he means this, or I think he means that.
I understand the premise of all of this. I just want to know exactly how you can implement this when everybody's going nuts at the same time.
You can only implement it. You can only you can only feed, house, and clothe people by those who understand how to do those things. You can only build a bridge by those who are educated in bridge building. So it's really the scientists and the technicians that are needed to be put on the problems of feeding, housing, and clothing people. Even if you have good intentions, but you don't know how to produce more food per area, per acre, it won't make any difference. So you harness the technicians first. You take a survey of the area to see how much land you have, what the problems are, how many people you have, how many technicians you have, where the arable land is, and by that information, then you can solve the problems. You don't do it erroneously by opinions or wishes or aspirations or philosophies. You do it by using the methods of science to solve the problems.
I understand that. That's like the documentary we just watched. I understand all that. Like I said, that the day or the month or however long this keeps going on, there comes a time where it gets worse and worse, and people are busy trying to just live. How do you stop them and say, hey, this is what we're doing, unless you have enough people put together? It would seem easier to implement if you could do it before a class. A lot easier if you get started before that.
That's why we're working now to introduce it to people. That's why we have been working and putting all of our funds in it for the last 36 years, me and Jacques all his life. So we work at it all the time, and what would be helpful, what it will take is other people identifying with it, understanding the significance, and working at it. And we do have chapters all over the world. If you go to our website under Get Involved, you will see chapters all over the world and people working at it and introducing it to others.
It's a completely new way of thinking. It has nothing to do with present-day politics. It is not.
I like it. I like the premise, and I think it's enactable, and you can work the bugs out. I just think that after the class, it'll be so much harder to try to get that together than it would be before the class.
Yes, it would.
We have a lot of willing people right now.
Look at our website.
Start stuff.
Look at our website, venusproject.com.
Hi there. Thank you very much for what you're doing. Have you considered, or do you have, some sort of curriculum that could be implemented? I know, as you probably know, in the state of Florida, the same architects who design prisons design our schools, and all the while you're trying to re-educate adults, we're pumping out these dumbed-down children. And so I'm wondering if while we're re-educating adults, we could be educating differently our children now, or at least having something that we could propose that we could begin implementing right now.
Are you a teacher? Are you in education? Or are you a student now?
No, I'm a mother who just raised 4 kids.
Okay. Yeah, we put out a lot of information. We have hours and hours of lectures. we have movies, we have books on different topics. We have free ebooks on our website. We are starting a curriculum right now and asking for help within our community of people to help work on it. So we do have an awful lot of information. For young children, we don't, very young, we don't. Probably high school and college. We have one woman who wrote a book, a really nice book for young kids. It was very inspirational about this direction. But we don't have a curriculum for young students, you know, elementary school. And if anybody would want to participate and learn about this and work with us and do that, we would really welcome it.
That's wonderful. And one other thing I just wanted to ask you, as a way of, you know, like taking baby steps toward this environment that you're proposing, have you considered maybe designing some sort of school that's different than looks like a prison?
Well, that's, oh, you mean the design of the school?
Yeah, that's more closely related to the model that you have, kind of like a microcosm.
Well, we literally, Jacques over the years is prolific with his designs. We're archiving everything right now. And we have archived, we're scanning in over 4,000 of his architectural and product designs. So we do have a lot of different designs, yes.
The design for a long time. There used to be one thing in your home that you didn't own that never broke down. Do you know what that is? The telephone. It belonged to the phone companies,
big black
and they
phone.
designed it so it wouldn't break down. But all the junk you buy today is tinny, poorly put together, designed to wear out and break down. It's really the withdrawal of efficiency to make sales go up. Everybody becomes a little businessman, and everybody chefs everybody else. You live in a selfish culture that's brought up to beat the other fellow. Our culture is designed to help the other fellow. No more beating, no more taking advantage of cheap labor or anything like that. It's making all things available to all people. How is that done? Like the public library. You can go to the public library and check out a book without paying any money. Next door to the public library, we have a camera center where any human being can access a camera from any country. Next door to that, we have musical instruments which are available to everybody. That's the end of crime. If you wish to end crime, you don't make laws. You make things available, so there's no basis for crime. In other words, if you tell people that you only have in common that which other people have in common with you. If you were brought up in the Deep South, let's say, years ago, you might say, "Oh, give me a nigger and I'm going to kick his ass." Is that you speaking or what you picked up from your environment? So I think that a member of the Ku Klux Klan is neither good nor bad. He's a victim of the subculture he was brought up in. Can you understand that?
Exactly, which is why I keep going back to that 0 to 5 and the schools and that being where kind of we make this transition.
We have to bring up children differently. That any mother is permitted to raise children. That's one of the most dangerous things you can do, giving everyone a right to their own opinion. That's the worst thing you can do, because I used to ask people, "You think we'll ever get to the moon?" They said, "Not in 1,000 years." I said, "Have you studied space?" "No." "Have you studied space travel on a higher altitude?" "No." Then how do you arrive at that? Because I believe everyone should have a right to their own opinion. That's dangerous.
We think that everybody should have access to information.
We will make everything available to people. There'll be no superior groups. It will not be a world controlled by engineers or scientists. None of that. That's what a lot of people picture. But it's nothing like that. It's just that everybody is educated to understand how the world works. And I've been teaching people for years. I met members of the Ku Klux Klan, and they said to me, "Jacques, you're a smart guy. What do you think of the Ku Klux Klan?" I used to say, it's a great organization, but it doesn't go far enough. That gets their ear. If you attack, you lose it. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have to use strategies to change people, not reason or logic. It doesn't work unless they've been trained in logical associations.
If you're using strategy to change people, then that means somebody
I've
has
been
power. Somebody has power over the people who don't get it.
Well, it depends on, when you talk about power, today, those who are in charge and have power are using that to manipulate you for their own advantage. When we're talking about education and manipulation, it's for the benefit, it's for a society, for them to understand, because they've been raised with such different values. It's for them to understand this direction and understand a society that would benefit them and the environment. It hurts no one. There's no elitism. There's no scientific elitism.
no armies, no navies, no prisons, no police. Do you
I'm looking
understand?
forward to checking out your curriculum online. I'm going to check it out
Good.
and check it out and see how it's useful here in Alaska.
It's everything the Bible talks about, but doesn't know how to install.
It's thevenusproject.com.
Thank you. And thank you very much for being here tonight.
Please look.
Yeah, she's going to.
Great. Great.
Hi.
Hi.
I was having a discussion with my wife the other day about what the Venus Project stands for, and there were a lot of questions I could not answer, but one of them is, how do you set up a system of checks and balances so that nobody who has the advantage to take over, let's say, the machines that control where resources go, how do you stop that from happening?
How do you stop people from taking over, and how do you have checks and balances? Like, how do you stop people from taking over the machines that are producing things?
Okay. The way you do that is you educate people first in what we call dynamic equilibrium. That if you have so much area on Earth, so much water under the ground, so much arable land area, that determines the size of a city, not Fresco or anybody else. You base all your decisions upon statistical data. If the Earth can support 7 billion people, if you produce 8 billion people, you're going to produce starvation, territorial disputes.
Now, his question was, how do you stop anyone from manipulating things for their own advantage within the
By
system?
educating them in dynamic equilibrium, how we depend on the capacity of the Earth to produce. If you go beyond what the Earth can carry, you're going to have trouble.
You know, when everybody has access to goods and services for free, then there is nothing that anybody can do to manipulate you. When nobody can steal anything because everybody has access to that. Nobody would come in your house and steal something from you if they have access to it. If it is meeting people's needs, like if you have a family that's very warm and reinforces you, and they have a garden that feeds you, you wouldn't go into the garden and smash it if that's feeding you and nurturing you. Your right hand doesn't want to cut off your left arm. Do you know what I mean? When you have a culture where everybody supports one another, this culture is totally opposite of that. Everybody is out there to take advantage of you. You get a toothache, somebody makes $1,000 fixing it. You smash your car, somebody makes $2,000 fixing that. But if you have a culture where everybody participating enriches your life, you know, you can tell if somebody's disoriented or aberrated or has a pus pocket in your brain, and they would be helped. They wouldn't be put in jail, you know, because something could happen to your brain physically that could make you aberrated in some way. So people are helped in that condition. But otherwise, I don't see any reason, if people understand the society, that they would work against another person, because it works against them as well.
I had another question.
Sorry.
When me and my wife were talking, she brought up this point where this scenario where two scientists, or let's say two groups of scientists that live in the city, come up with a design for a machine that does the same thing. How is that conflict resolved? Who or what determines which machine is going to be built? Because there's only so many resources available. So how do you resolve the problem
I'm going to
between
tell
two?
Jacques, because he can't hear you, I'm sure, because it's really muddled, but I got what you're trying to say. If groups of scientists come up with different machines, how is it solved to do the same task? How is it solved? Which group?
If they both are equal, we turn out both machines. Why do you have to turn out one or the other?
Well, I guess she thinking about the resources. Let's say we only have so many resources allocated for specific use, and you have two groups of X people that come up with X, and how do you determine where the resources go?
By resource determinants. You determine if someone comes up with a machine that uses a lot of stainless steel and it does the same thing, and you don't have enough stainless steel, then you'd use the other machine. It would depend on what resources we have. You know, but if two groups of people want to do an airplane, and one wants to try a swept forward wing, and another wants to do a swept back wing, you don't have to do one or the other. When you have a high-resourced society, you try both of them, and you see what works. But you know, people will not be getting Nobel Prizes when they work on things. They won't be getting honors when they develop things. They don't need that, because they will understand that how they develop things is on the backs of many other people, and they don't look for prizes or there's no money reward. When they find a solution, they're all happy, and then they can go work on something else, because whatever they're working on goes right into society to improve people's lives and their own life. So, you know, nobody's out to beat the other person. The scientists don't want their project over another person's project. They want the one that works best for everyone while conserving resources. So it's a very different way of thinking.
We bring up children differently in the schools. We don't bring them up competitively. I used to read to my children at night in bed when they were 4 years old. And at the most interesting part of the book, I would close it. And my kid says, "What happened, Daddy?" I said, "If you learn to read, you can find out yourself. Don't teach them to read. Give them a reason to want to learn to read." Do you understand what I'm saying? We give them a reason to want to know math, why they should work with other people, why they should be cooperative rather than self-centered. You live in a self-centered world today. When a doctor says your kidney has to come out, you don't know whether he's trying to pay off a new car or a boat, or whether your kidney has to come out. In a monetary system, people are not trustworthy. All people. When a mechanic says it's going to cost you $4,000 to fix your car, you don't know that.
And you want reward and prestige. You want money for it. You want the one that's going to be the thing that's going to be chosen. You don't need that. You surpass those types of values in the future.
If you want a kid to be a doctor, you have to send him to medical school. If you want to be an aeronautical engineer, you send him to an aviation school. You always have to send your kid away to learn a new system. The same with the Venus Project. You have to learn all about it, not project your own values into it. thinking that the engineers control everything. They don't. They just build bridges if that's what they're trained to do. Or they build electronic circuits if that's what they're trained to do. But they don't control people.
When we say it is an entirely different way of thinking, it really is. When I started learning about this after about a month, I realized, my God, everything I learned in this system is totally inadequate. And I had to start, it's like learning a whole new language.
Yes.
Yeah, it is, and I have been aware about your project for quite some time, and I agree with everything that you say, and I relate really well to your perspective. I think that people are still afraid, and
That's true.
they feel that even if we move to a system like that, like a resource-based economy, there is still going to be a few group of people who are going to want to go back to the old ways so that they can amass power and manipulate people. And
So far, we haven't had that problem.
I think that the idea that there is no police and no army and nothing like that makes them afraid of being vulnerable to something like that.
Did you ever hear the story of why these Arabs flew the airplanes into the Twin Towers? Did you ever hear their side of the story?
No, but I don't think it was. I think it was much more complicated.
No, you only get the American side of the story. But do you know we've been killing Arabs for 75 years?
80 years, Jacques. 80. We have been massacring Arabs for 80 years now. I think they've been very patient. You know, Americans wouldn't stand for that. So there are always reasons why people act the way they act.
Just remember that the Democrats lie about the Republicans lie about the Democrats. They can't communicate with each other because of their background.
The transition will be painful. It would not be easy because people are not logical or reasonable. But you know, where people are at today, primarily, is what's in it for me. And as this system begins to crash and people are homeless and people who have very good industries lose those industries, they want to know how they'll feed themselves, how they'll be clothed, how they'll educate their kids. And if they're introduced to a system that will work for them, I assure you they'll take it if they see the benefits.
One last question. What do you think would be the most wise thing to do during the collapse? What should people do in order to rebuild society and move to something else? Because I think that people are going to be freaking out over everything that's happening. And I think there are many ways that the control can take over and basically create chaos.
You know, if people are educated, they can't be controlled in that way. They won't stand for it. But your best bet to have a more secure transition is to educate people in this direction and these values. If you keep them stupid, you know, when the blacks were slaves, it was against the law to teach them how to read, because if they knew too much, they couldn't be enslaved. It's the same thing here. If people understood what was happening around them, they wouldn't stand for it. So the best thing is really to educate them. But, you know, a lot of people today are talking about how bad things are in the culture and how much people are abused, but they do not have an alternative. So it gets them angry, and it just puts it in their laps. So that's why if you know about the Venus Project and you can learn about it and talk about it, do that. That's our biggest security at this time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I have a few announcements that I'll make offline regarding the Venus Project, regarding our efforts here in Gainesville. I think I might have mentioned to you guys, maybe not, but I'm in the process of trying to start a chapter here in Gainesville.
Awesome. Yeah. There's a lot of colleges that are starting to do that, so it would be great to get the different people together. But you know, we have chapters all over. We can get in touch with other people who are doing that as well.
All over.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Devin.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thank you very much for all your effort. You guys have put a lot of time, a lot of effort. You guys have heard the same questions over and over and over and over.
Oh, and we have over 100 questions and answers on our website too, and more being added.
Yeah, I would recommend that the best option is for people to go on YouTube and listen to the lectures on multiple subjects that you guys talk about.
Yeah.
And
We have books.
And Chuck's book,
And books.
is a
And
great
books.
start. The best
Books
that money
and-
can't buy is a great start. And in your chapter, if you get it and you read it chapter by chapter and discuss it, that's a tremendous thing.
Thank you for that input. I will definitely consider that. And we're going to sign off now. We got some deconstructing of this room, and yeah, you'll hear back from us in the near future. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, and we'll always be accessible to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.